Netanyahu trip to the U.S., and IBA's Eli Wogelenter asked analyst Gerald Steinberg how he believes the Prime Minister fared in his mission.
We had a lot of predictions at the beginning. This was going to be a relatively routine set of meetings. There have been a lot of back and forth focusing on Iran. Then we had the Jeffrey Goldberg interview, which really came across both in the language that was used, but also the interpretation by Goldberg and others, that these were Obama threats, that if you don't follow our lead, that this is going to be a disaster for Israel. It's almost that kind of language that was used. And there was expectation as the Prime Minister got off his plane in Washington, that at the meeting the next day at the White House, it wouldn't just be frosty outside, it would be very cold on the... And that body language and the words that we heard, none of that. In fact, we heard basically the language of praise. This was from the Americans, this was a good meeting, and it wasn't the diplomatic double talk. They went out of their way to say this was a very good meeting between the President and the Prime Minister. So, again, it's a question of confusion, of nuances. Clearly, how this all fits together in terms of where we go from here with the peace process remains a big question.
And Abbas is coming next week to Washington.
And beyond that, and in the Goldberg interview, the President said Abbas is a best partner you're going to get for peace. He really wants peace, which does not at all seem consistent with what Israelis hear and see from Abbas and the Palestinians and what the Prime Minister said. Basic rule, basic requirement is end of conflict, which means recognizing legitimacy of Israel. Otherwise, we have a Palestinian state, borders, and then they say, no, we want the whole thing. We want to go back to 48. So recognizing legitimacy of the Jewish state of Israel is critical, and Abbas is staying a mile away from that. Recognizing there is no right of return. We're going to have to negotiate something that satisfies the refugees, but there's no right of return that can be used as a stick against Israel. Those things the Americans have made no progress on, and that's going to come up. If it doesn't come up in the meetings with Abbas, I don't know where the process is, but Netanyahu comes out of this, it looks like basically where they hoped they would be. These issues are back on the table, they're central, and they have American support. So it was a good meeting, good week.
One of the highlights of Netanyahu's visit was